I think that wars catalyze the adoption of new technology. And that's the history. What you learn in the history of science is that new technologies are oftentimes presented and then they're rejected by the establishment until there's a war. And when there's a war, all of a sudden we decide that we want to adopt new technology because we're more afraid of losing the war than we are afraid of the new
Yep.
technology. So, we've got a pandemic, a war on COVID that accelerated all sorts of new technologies, including Bitcoin. I think the Ukrainian war has accelerated it some more, and a couple of different ways. First of all, you've got hundreds of millions of people in Eastern Europe who have their currencies collapsing. The Russian currencies collapsed, but the Hungarian currency is weakening. The Ukrainian currency is weakening. The Polish currency is weakening. The Turkish currency is weakening. Every currency in that region is weakening, and some are completely collapsing. So people that earn money, the working class earns money in the currency or save money in the currency, are becoming insecure with their currency. The currency doesn't work anymore. The second is the banking systems are collapsing. If you wake up and you find out that there's a half-mile long line outside of an ATM for you to withdraw $33 in cash, then you realize the banks aren't serving you, the cash is not serving you, and you need a new form of currency or a new medium of exchange if you're going to get on with your life. And so people, and that's happening in the Ukraine, but that also happened in Russia, right? Where they shut down the stock market, they shut down and the currency markets, etc. When the borders get closed, when the banks fail, when the stock markets fail, in the extreme situations like you see in Lebanon, where the banks literally freeze your assets, close, and then they devalue your assets by a factor of 10, then what you have is you have 400 million people directly affected where they can't trust their government, they can't trust their bank, they can't trust their currency. 400 million directly affected.
Bitcoin is soaring to new heights amid the Russia-Ukraine situation. The leading crypto, Bitcoin, got a price boost on Friday after a senior legislator in Russia's parliament said governments friendly to Moscow could soon be given the option to pay their gas bills in the cryptocurrency. Additionally, diversifying into Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies could help Russia lessen its dependence on dollars and euros issued by unfriendly states like the US and the EU, and in the process, skirt the sanctions they placed on it. Hello and welcome to Money Talks. In today's video, Bitcoin evangelist, billionaire, and CEO of MicroStrategy Michael Saylor talks about the role of Bitcoin in the Russian-Ukrainian conflict, the impact of war on economies, and the role of Bitcoin as a digital asset that can revolutionize the future. Saylor also talks about the importance of Bitcoin adoption and how it will change the world in the coming few years. If you like the video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the post notifications. Let's dive right into the video.
So Bitcoin is like that. It's digital energy. And some people haven't adopted it because they don't have 1,000 hours or 100 hours to study it. And some people haven't adopted it because the regulatory guidelines are hostile to their business adopting it. And some people haven't adopted it because they're getting paid billions a year to do the opposite. And it's like you're paying me to trade fixed income sovereign debt. So why? And I know it's an awful thing. It's losing 10% of its value a year or more, but I'm getting rich doing it.
I'm making money out of it and I keep doing it. Sure.
Yeah. So go home to your wife and tell her that you decided to give up the job that, you're getting paid a lot of money for to do a different thing and you'll get by, right? So these are all reasons why the world doesn't just immediately change. But having said all that, the world is changing, right? I mean, Bitcoin was trading at $9,000 a coin, in June of 2020. And we're not 2 years later, and it's up by a factor of 4, right? So it is changing. Billions of dollars of capital are flowing. And, they may flow slower than some people would like, but it seems like it's the most disruptive force in the financial universe right now,
It's
and the world is waking up. What you have is 4 billion people watching, indirectly affected in two ways. First of all, everybody else in the world is suffering from inflation that's already rampant. We were
Yep.
already inflating the currency supply by about 15% a year or more before this. And then the response of Europe and the US to the war exacerbated the inflation, right? We drove up the price of energy. We're driving up the price of just about everything. We're impairing the supply chains. So you've got everybody in the Western world probably staring at 20% monetary inflation right now. They're losing 1 to 2% of the value in the euro and the dollar every month. Okay, that's also happening in China. So anybody in the world right now is getting a double dose of inflation because of this war. They're also watching, and at every level, people are realizing that currency derivatives and traditional conventional property is no longer secure. The Russians had hundreds of billions of dollars of gold and sovereign debt seized, but the Chinese have $3 trillion worth of that stuff.
Wow.
So if you're Chinese and you're thinking, what happens if the United States just seizes $3 trillion of my money? That makes you a bit insecure. And of course, that rubs off on the Indians, the Pakistanis, right? Everybody in the world is now insecure about their sovereign reserves at the corporate level. If your own government doesn't seize your money, then someone else's government will seize your money. If you don't own the country, if you don't control the government, you probably don't have any secure property. If you do own the country, all your property that's outside of your country is still insecure. So this is an unprecedented time of insecurity combined with inflation and literally the collapse of currencies and currency derivatives. You could look at this war as kind of a wake-up call for everybody in the world. If you're at all paying attention, what you would realize is you really want crypto property, right? Since I can't rely upon property in any country, and I can't rely on any currency, and I can't rely on any currency derivative. And a bond is a currency derivative, a swap is a currency derivative, a value stock is a currency derivative. A piece of real estate, commercial real estate that generates rents, is a currency derivative. So if I can't trust currency derivatives and I can't trust the government, and I'm insecure about my property, what would you do? And the obvious answer is convert your property into crypto property or digital property, put it in cyberspace beyond the reach of any government or any other hostile action. And then make sure if it's crypto property, it's not a currency derivative, which means that it's inflation proof. And the idea of inflation proof property that cannot be confiscated by a hostile regime is a matter of life or death for hundreds of millions of people right now. If there was a spot ETF where I could just go buy $1 billion of Bitcoin in a spot ETF, then maybe I would do that. But of course, there isn't the spot ETF because there's regulatory inertia.
Yeah.
There's, and there's also other forms of inertia, like FASB has a certain accounting treatment. The accounting treatment for Bitcoin was established when there was no company in the world that had more than $2 million of it on its balance sheet. Okay, so a while ago, it was irrelevant. And today, of course, there are tens of billions of dollars of Bitcoin on balance sheets of publicly traded vehicles. But the accounting is still indefinite and intangible. Indefinite and intangible accounting means that if I buy $1 billion of Bitcoin and it trades down by 50%, and then it trades up by 1,000%, the fair value of it is $10 billion, but I would be showing it on my GAAP accounting statement as $500 million. And I would never write it up again. Okay, so if you're a publicly traded company and you have a successful business selling streaming video, and you have $10 billion of capital, and you go buy the Bitcoin and you make $100 billion for your investors, it'll look like you lost $5 billion for your investors. And then you have to explain that, and that's very hard to explain. And if you're a conservative CFO, you would think, do I really want to go through the headache of explaining this to my investors? And maybe I'll get fired by some random investor for making money because they thought I lost money because I've got an antiquated accounting rule.
The Russian announcement of accepting Bitcoin was hailed by crypto bulls, who celebrated that Bitcoin was being tapped to play an economic role in the here and now, after years of talk about its possible use in the midterm future. One of the risks for Bitcoin investors beyond a high carbon footprint that inspired a failed EU attempt to ban it has been the digital currency's limited appeal due to its reputation as a speculative investment with no inherent value. Perceptions now appear to be changing, and people are starting to warm to the idea as the war in Ukraine creates new uses. Also, the economic sanctions against Russia have attempted to starve the Kremlin of its ability to wage and finance its war against Kiev's government. The conflict was sparked in part by Ukraine President Volodymyr Zelensky's attempts to free Ukraine from its role as a client state to Moscow, a fate that has befallen neighboring Belarus, and align it with Western powers such as the EU. Zavolny's proposal comes a day after Russia demanded that all unfriendly states, including those that participated in Western sanctions, settle their gas bills in rubles in an apparent attempt to prop up the currency. A stronger ruble could help reduce domestic inflationary pressures, tipped this week by households to approach record heights. Soaring inflation is seen by analysts as a potential destabilizing force in Russia. So, do you agree with Saylor's take on the role of Bitcoin in the Russia-Ukraine situation? Tell us in the comments. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe. See you soon with the next video. Thank you so much for watching.